We're going to talk about the rash of highway shootings in California, what's behind them, what motivates people. We're going to talk with an educator from Brazil about the exchange program between his university and Ball State University. And we're going to have some entertainment by the Ball State University Jazz Ensemble. Dr. David Perkins, Ball State University professor of psychology, talks with us today about the motivations that may be behind the recent number of highway shootings in California. Dr. Perkins, before we get into motivations, are these type of incidents apt to spread eastward to the Midwest? Or?
Well, it's hard to say, Jim. I think conditions that give rise to these sorts of reactions are probably present potentially almost anywhere, but I think there are conditions of crowding and frustration and difficulties in making your daily commute to work and so on that may be particular to very high density urban areas. I think those are important contributors to the risk, and for that reason at least would make these reactions a little less likely in more sparsely populated parts of the country.
Why are we having them occur with such frequency?
Well, you mean in Southern California?
Yes.
In general, I think these reactions are caused by a lot of factors, not a single simple one that it's easy to put your finger on. I think that, for example, once a few of these happen and become publicized, as some commentators have said, it provides a script for people who may be otherwise vulnerable to the frustration, to the desire to strike back, who may have the handgun or other weapon available, making the probability they'll engage in this reaction a little greater than it was before the publicity for these events first took place.
You know, we can't simply say there are a lot of crazies in this world, because there must be something more to it than this.
Well, I think so. If you look at the episodes that have taken place, it's true that they've increased in alarming frequency, but on the other hand, with the millions of passenger miles traveled every day in a place like Southern California, it remains a statistically rare kind of event even out there. And so for that reason it seems difficult to find a single personality variable or motivational factor, because it's still only a fraction of 1% of people. So that's why, as I say, I prefer to look at a large number of factors that in combination together would account for a rare event. And additional to personality variables, it seems to me you'd have to look at the situational conditions that are present, the high density travel, the availability of handguns, which are interesting because they enable the perpetrator to strike back with some impunity against the victim. The person can menace an individual by long distance, can fire the weapon and traverse some 50, 100 feet or more, all within the safety and security and anonymity of his own vehicle. So I think that contributes something as well. The anonymity in particular is a variable psychologists have associated now with acts of violence. It's much easier, it turns out, to aggress against someone who isn't known to you, who doesn't know who you are, who isn't even physically present from you, but rather is isolated in some way. And then I think getting back to the situation involved in the high density living and commuting, those situations for some vulnerable people anyway seem to offer the message that we're each of us as individuals not very significant in the world. The world wouldn't be a much different place if we were here or not here, because there are 2,000 other people caught in this bottleneck or gridlock just like I am. And for a person who's acutely sensitive to those signs of insignificance, their tendency to resort to some act or statement that's going to at least victimize another hapless motorist like themselves is more likely, because then they can say, well, maybe I'm not worth much, but I'm worth more than he is, because he's over there cowering in fear as I brandish my weapon after this incident we've had.
Because we're all familiar with the psychological profile of the changing personality as the person gets into their automobile. In fact, we've seen cartoons to that effect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. There's an idea that some people may be familiar with. It's getting more and more widely known generally, called the type A personality, the person who's very competitive and driven to achieve and speaks very rapidly and explosively and has easily expressed hostility lurking just beneath the surface. And it turns out, anecdotally, that the best way to determine if you're a type A personality or not is your behavior behind the wheel of a car. There are lots of paper and pencil tests, but what some of the researchers have told me is that the acid test is whether you're the person leaning on the throttle at 66 miles an hour behind a slow-moving truck, or you're the person who's stopping to smell the roses and take it easy. So I think you're right that personality differences can sometimes be crystallized even more sharply when we're in this kind of situation, giving us a lot of power and authority operating this large and sometimes dangerous motor vehicle.
The true you comes out.
Well, the situation, I think, contributes. That is, we're put into these narrow lanes and fighting for position and to get where we want to go. And I think it's an interaction between what might be some tendencies or predilections on the person's part, but very importantly, the opportunity then to express those, which he's not going to have, sitting in his room reading a novel late at night.
This observation will surprise you. I was in Southern California in early June before these shootings started.
Mm-hmm.
And I drove from Los Angeles to San Diego to visit relatives. And I commented when I arrived at my uncle's home at how courteous California drivers were. He didn't believe me.
Mm-hmm.
And it was true. I drove the 125 miles and they were very courteous, allowing me in and out of lanes or in and off ramps. It was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was surprised because I'd always heard of the crazy California drivers.
Well, some of the situational factors, again, I think are going to add to the risk of an incident that's unfortunate. You may not have been driving during the peak rush hour. You may not have been driving on an unusually hot day that heat tends to increase arousal, and that may make a person more easily frustrated or have a lower threshold to react in some thoughtless kind of way. And
Correct, I think on both counts.
Yeah, right.
No.
And I think that's an interesting point, that to my knowledge and what I've read of these incidents, few, if any, have been utterly wanton assaults on the other motorist. In general, there's been at least mild provocation. The victims claim exceedingly mild provocation, but perhaps from the perpetrator's point of view, it was a little bit more threatening or insulting than that. And I think that when you add that factor to these others we've talked about, that again, the cumulative risk is what really would, I think, be the most comprehensive explanation. And you were fortunate in your travel perhaps to be in a situation where the risks weren't quite so acutely evident.
Mike Royko, who writes for the Chicago newspaper, Chicago Tribune, wrote an article yesterday saying that he was surprised that only the innocent were attacked and shot at. And of course that he went on to explain that...
I think he said with so few truly innocent people, isn't it remarkable that every one of them is being picked out by these violence-prone individuals. Yeah, so I think that, again, the lesson should be the sheer number of factors which probably have to simultaneously come together. And that would explain what, even though it's alarming, would, after all, be a relatively rare incident. And I think even more rare, again, in other parts of the country.
Of course, acts of violence in Indiana are not common, but they're not rare either.
Not
For
unheard
example,
of, right.
People ramming their car into the rear of another who's not going fast enough or something of that nature, that occurs here.
I noticed in the news just yesterday or the day before, this man who drove his semi-truck into the bar in Indianapolis is now going to trial, or in some way that case is in progress now. And that doesn't seem too different to me than this sort of deadly assaults that are in the news now in California.
Another frightening story came in the paper, I think just today, and that was children using toy guns in automobiles. And one 16-year-old riding with his mother aimed a very real-looking .45 toy gun at a police detective.
The story that I'm familiar with, right, is where the guns have now been manufactured to look so lifelike and realistic that that's adding to the problem. Toy guns have been around as long as I can remember, but in my day they were pretty crude and playthings and not likely to be mistaken for the real thing. But one of the breakthroughs in technology recently, I guess, is the manufacture of guns that are toys but quite lifelike, and as a result likely to be mistaken.
Ann Landers, America's most noted amateur psychologist, I wouldn't call her an amateur, actually. She's had enough experience she really tells it quite well. But she said never antagonize another motorist or get away from this type of a situation as soon as you can.
I think that's the best advice I've seen too. That is, if you look at this as a situation of multiple risks, one thing you can do for your own well-being is reduce, if you can't eliminate, the risks to you. So if I were traveling in Southern California, I would try not to travel during the rush hour on the high-density freeways, but instead look for alternate routes, travel at other times of the day, give way graciously, be timid, strive to be something maybe different than I really am, with an eye at least to reducing this risk that I might otherwise face.
Swallow your pride.
Right. Some things are less important than your life and security.
Sure. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Dr. David Perkins, Professor of Psychology at Ball State University, talking to us about how you can preserve life and limb on the highway. The Ball State Jazz Ensemble, directed by Larry McWilliams, entertains now with their rendition of Night Flight. From the University Federal Santa Maria, Brazil, comes our next guest, Dr. Odilon Do Canto, Dean of the College of Exact Sciences. Also, one of his sponsors in the Ball State Exchange Program, Dr. Malcom Hults, Chairman of the Department of Physics and Astronomy at Ball State University. Dr. Canto, is this your first visit to Indiana and Ball State University?
Yes, it's the first time I've been here in this part of the country.
What did you learn? I understand you've been here for some time. You're leaving soon, but you've been here for...
Yeah, I've been here since July 2nd. And, well, my mission here, I would say it's a twofold mission. First of all, as a faculty member of our physics department in Universidade Federal of Santa Maria, I'm here to do some work, some research work with the faculty members of the physics department here. And second, as a dean of our College of Science and Exact and Natural Science in Santa Maria, I'm here trying to make the people here interested in this exchange program that we are developing with Ball State University inside this main program of the Partners of America.
How is the exchange program beneficial?
Well, see, in Brazil, we are a university inland, and so we have a lots of problems with to get our people trying to get the level of our people better. So this exchange program, getting people from Ball State down to there and spend some time with us, and our people coming here and spending some time here, this would make, I think, the level increase and be better teachers down there.
You both have expertise to exchange. What kind of research did you share here at Ball State?
Well, I have been working in a neutron generator facility here because it happened that we have a similar one down in Santa Maria. It's still not in operation yet, but we hope in the next future put it in operation. So I brought some air samples from Brazil, and I have been analyzing these samples with Dr. Dave Olber here in Ball State. So this kind of research that I have been involved with here.
Good, thank you. Dr. Hults, you've been involved in the exchange program and you spent some time in Brazil.
Right, I was there in 1966 the first time. Met Professor Vidal from Pilates, which is the very southern part of Rio Grande do Sul. And that started an interesting progressing effort. Professor Vidal's been up here a number of times during his summer vacation, which of course is our winter quarter. And then later I went there to Santa Maria, the same university Professor Canto's from. Spent 4 months with the whole family. Enjoyed it very much and met a number of Brazilians there. And then sporadically since then, several have come here. In the last year and a half now, things have developed a lot, very much faster. I went there a year and a half ago to see Halley's Comet, which is right overhead there, where it was very hard to see here. At that time we met and began thinking about Professor Canto's coming here. And now with our partners program and Lane Burkle and Teachers College and I working together on this from this point, and people from Indianapolis and people from Porto Alegre, all working on our partners for the program, we hope to develop this very, very far. Not only in our own field of physics, but in any of the sciences and any other field as well. We hope a lot of people can come back and forth. They're coming here and our going there.
Dr. Cantos, let's look at some slides you brought showing the physical makeup of the university and the area.
Sure. Yeah, this is downtown Santa Maria. It's a city of 250,000 people, and it's located right in the center of our state, Rio Grande do Sul. Rio Grande do Sul is the southernmost state in Brazil. We have border with Uruguay and Argentina.
Looks like a beautiful, clean city.
Yeah, well, I like it.
About the size of South Bend? 250,000.
This is an aerial view of our campus. You can see several of our buildings. The big one right on the top is the University Hospital, and then we have our library.
Do you have a medical program at the hospital?
Yes, we have a medical school there, and we have the other buildings at left, top left. It's the engineering, and then the School of Science, and then in the bottom part is the agriculture and arts building.
Is your university noted for one thing more than another? What is your strength?
Yeah, well, we are right in a region of very devoted to farms land, and also cattle growing. So we have a strong program in veterinary and agronomic.
Ah.
Yeah. Here is a view of our College of Science with the students walking around.
How many students do you
We have
university?
10,000 students.
And what are the qualifications? How easy or how difficult it is for a student to get an education in Brazil?
I'd say that it's difficult because the economical situation is very bad. So very few of our people could make it to the college courses. The great majority, they cannot even have their first degrees, like to finish the elementary school. We have an evasion. Lots of people that start in the first few years have to go out and start working because they don't have any money to.
So a university education is really a great honor.
It is. It is. It is. We have been trying to overcome this problem, but until now we have, I'd say, very bad situations.
Good. Now let's take a look at the other slides. This one is.
Yeah, this is an aerial view of our campus where we see at the bottom our planetary and the School of Agricultural again and Art College. There's another view of the University Hospital.
How old is your university?
It was founded in 1962.
It's a fairly new university.
It's fairly new.
Is it a state university or government sponsored?
It's a government sponsor. In Brazil, we have most of the universities are government sponsored. We have very few state sponsored universities. This is a view of one of our big celebrations in Rio Grande do Sul. It's a Gaúcho celebration. Gaúcho is our typical cowboy, would say that. And then we have September the 20th, we have this big parade.
Dr. Hults, how do you think the exchange program could be strengthened?
Well, of course, finances are always the problem. But our feeling is this, that if there's a two-way effort, it can work. For example, if someone from Ball State goes there, if Ball State or through some outside agent, some granting agent can provide the travel, then the host university, like the Federal University of Santa Maria, then could provide the housing and the living expenses. And it seems as though that has already worked fairly well in the few cases we've tried. We want to promote that a lot more. And the idea there, of course, it does involve money both ways. In the reverse, if they come here, then Santa Maria could provide the travel money, and then we would provide housing and money for living, that type of thing.
Of course, these kind of exchanges, Dr. Canto, help with better understanding and greater knowledge and
Yeah, sure. And I think we have a strong point behind all this program is that make our people acquainted with each other will create a better international understanding between the nations. And of course, this, I think, it's a very important thing for us and especially for our children.
You know, it's very seldom when people get together that the people have a problem. Governments sometimes have problems, but
Sure, yeah,
on a
that's
one-to-one or group
Yeah,
basis, they
that's
seldom. Does your university have any problem with the exchange program? You arrange your own transportation, or if our professors arrange their transportation, then the university can take care of them as far as housing and food is concerned?
Well, the thing has been working like that. When a professor from Santa Maria would come to Ball State, we provided the air tickets even through our governmental agencies, or sometimes even through the Partners of America. And the living expenses here are provided by somehow by Ball State University, and vice versa. When a professor comes from the United States to Santa Maria, the ticket fare are provided by the United States agencies, and we take care of the living expenses there.
And so it works out well.
Yeah, it has been working pretty well.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you.
Our guests have been Dr. Odilon Do Canto, Dean of the College of Exact Sciences, the University Federal Santa Maria, Brazil, Dr. Malcom Hults, who is chairman of the Ball State University Physics and Astronomy Departments. Thank you for joining us.